Pesto, not blood, just a vibrant green smear on my pristine linen shirt. Yet at that moment, it felt like the color of my meticulously planned future, bleeding away. Forget the dramatic movie finales. My reality was far more mundane, yet infinitely more shattering. I stood beneath a canopy of mismatched fairy lights on a swanky rooftop, clutching a flimsy, eco-friendly plate of artisanal flatbread. A strained smile plastered to my face while a chorus of polite chuckles erupted around me, courtesy of my fiancé's latest quip. Here's what no one tells you about betrayal. It often begins with a whisper and ends with a laugh. I hadn't quite caught the punchline, but I heard the echo. "She's absolutely right," one of Solana's friends snickered, her voice carrying over the lounge music. "You truly are like her personal concierge, Kaylin." More laughter, a few sidelong glances in my direction. One person even muttered, "Poor fellow." And that's when the truth solidified. They weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at me. At the man who meticulously managed her digital calendar, ensured her bespoke dry cleaning was ready, and even scheduled reminders for her monthly skincare appointments. The man who had orchestrated a sunset proposal with imported orchids and was met with a rather flat, "Oh, is this it?" I didn't interject. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even flinch. I simply drifted toward the mobile bar, wiped my hands with a biodegradable napkin that faintly smelled of citrus zest, and calmly declared, "Does anyone want a lavish event space? October 12th, non-refundable." A stunned silence descended, followed by an awkward cough from someone near the speakers. Solana Croft, my fiancée of 6 months, spun around, blinking as if I'd just recited a complex algorithm in Sanskrit. "What on earth are you talking about, Kaylin?" "The wedding," I stated, my voice steady, "is off." "Hold on, Sterling, come on. You're being absurd." "No, but your friends just were." Again, about me. Another heavy silence pressed in. "I'll inform my family tonight," I added, glancing at the glittering city skyline. "I presume you'll want to retain the guest list. It was predominantly your circle anyway." Then I carefully placed the engagement ring, still nestled in its velvet presentation box, on the polished marble counter next to a half-eaten artisanal pastry, and walked away. I didn't break down, I didn't yell, I didn't even risk a backward glance. But make no mistake, that wasn't a display of strength. It was pure, unadulterated numbness. Because what none of them knew, not her superficial acquaintances, not the well-dressed guests, not even Solana herself, was that this wasn't merely about a casual jest. This wasn't some throwaway barb during a celebratory gathering. This was about something far more insidious I had already uncovered. Something I'd been agonizing over for 3 weeks. The carefully guarded secrets she believed I knew nothing about. What if everything you thought you knew about someone was a carefully constructed lie? That moment was a fracture, not the shattering. If you found that shocking, brace yourself for the chilling reality that preceded it. The journey back to my apartment that night felt like walking through a vacuum, every ounce of oxygen seemingly siphoned from the atmosphere. I hadn't driven. My keys were still in the bespoke jacket I'd casually tossed onto a designer chair before the party truly began. I simply kept moving, past softly lit gallery windows, discarded food truck wrappings scattered on the pavement, and a young couple passionately entwined behind a vibrant graffiti mural, as if the universe wasn't meticulously unraveling for someone else just a few blocks away. I didn't weep. I didn't even register anger. I felt an emptiness so profound it terrified me far more than any fiery rage ever could. The digital bombardment began while I was still 4 blocks from my building. First from Solana, then a barrage from her inner circle, followed by her cousin, Mavis Croft, who had hosted the rooftop gathering and was evidently displeased that I'd transformed her elegant housewarming into what she dramatically termed a spectacle. One urgent message flashed, "You utterly humiliated her." Another, "You could have addressed this privately, Kaylin." But none of them possessed the knowledge I held. They hadn't seen the incriminating messages, the casual voice note, the exclusive group chat thread with her marketing team where I was mockingly labeled Mr. Discount Husband. I had kept every shred of it concealed, a festering wound beneath a composed exterior. 3 weeks prior, I had gone to use her minimalist tablet to order our usual Friday evening artisanal pizza. Her phone had conveniently died, mine was charging, and she'd nonchalantly instructed me to use hers. The pre-saved payment information was innocuous, harmless, until I tapped the secure messaging app and her private conversations popped open as if they'd been awaiting my discovery. Not an isolated incident, not a one-off joke, dozens of them. He's so meticulously polite, it's honestly pathetic, one read. Another, I swear he asked for permission to hold my hand. I genuinely need a man before I forget what that even feels like. There was even a cynical wager. I couldn't grasp the full context, but one of her colleagues jested, "Still time to back out before October, Solana. Are you in?" And her response, a laughing emoji accompanied by, "Not if I secure the penthouse first." It was that single line that pierced through me and refused to dislodge. Not if I secure the penthouse first? As if I were merely a temporary passport to something more desirable. A key, a strategic shortcut, a means to a very tangible material end. And still I remained silent. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm out or erupt in a furious outburst. I rationalized, perhaps it was sarcasm. Maybe she was simply venting. I clung to whatever fragile fragments of dignity I could salvage, until her derisive laughter echoed at that rooftop gathering. And in that hollow sound, I understood everything. I finally perceived the entire elaborate charade for what it truly was. So when I finally arrived back at my apartment, I ignored the incessant calls. I opened my sleek laptop, navigated to our shared wedding planning spreadsheet, and deleted the entire meticulous document with a single, decisive click. Then I sat in the dim light, staring at the ring box I had instinctively retrieved before departing. Not because I harbored any intention of ever offering it to her again, but because, for some unfathomable reason, I still couldn't bring myself to discard it. In 7 days, your perception of love will change. The next morning was eerily quiet. I don't mean quiet in the comforting, birdsong-filled, coffee-scented way. I mean hollow, as if the entire world had deliberately muted its volume. I hadn't slept. I merely sat there, replaying every agonizing detail repeatedly, like a miserable film editor trapped in an endless loop, questioning if I had overreacted, if perhaps I should have simply let it go. But each time that insidious doubt began to creep in, I conjured that specific message again. Not if I secure the penthouse first, and instantly my chest would constrict, a visceral reminder of precisely why I had walked away from that party with such chilling finality. At precisely 9:12 a.m., my phone vibrated, not a text this time, a direct call from Arthur Finch, one of my two closest remaining friends. Arthur and I had navigated our way through university together. We'd assembled flat-pack furniture in our first cramped apartment with nothing but butter knives and sheer determination. He wasn't merely a friend. He was the unwavering anchor who once drove 5 hours to assist me after my vintage car broke down in a rural town that didn't even possess streetlights. I hadn't divulged much about the party to him. I'd simply sent a terse message that night. "It's over. I'll explain later." When I answered, I anticipated concern, perhaps even a touch of shock. What I received instead was a single sentence that profoundly shifted the ground beneath my feet. "Kalen, I need to confess something, and I should have told you sooner." His voice was noticeably shaken, and that unsettling tremor terrified me more than anything else could have. He proceeded to explain that 2 months prior, he had spotted Solana at an upscale art gallery opening with someone, a man, seemingly in his mid-30s, sporting a designer smartwatch and a tailored suit that seemed ill-suited for the mild autumn weather. They weren't engaged in anything overtly intimate. No lingering kisses, no intertwined hands. But there was an undeniable current in her body language that compelled Arthur to pause. The subtle way she leaned into his personal space, the ease with which she laughed, the almost subconscious gesture of touching her hair. He initially dismissed it as a professional encounter. Yet he saw them again 2 weeks later, this time at a trendy rooftop lounge late at night, sharing an appetizer, seated far too intimately for mere colleagues. He had grappled with the decision to tell me, convinced he might be misinterpreting the situation. But after the dramatic events at the party, and after the fragmented details I'd shared about the digital messages, he felt he could no longer remain silent. I offered little in response. My stomach churned with a nauseating knot. I desperately wanted to be surprised, perhaps even utterly shocked. But the stark truth was, I wasn't. Not genuinely. I think a part of me had long suspected that something was fundamentally amiss, but it was far simpler to believe she simply didn't express love demonstratively, that perhaps her emotional reserves stemmed from her upbringing, her past traumas, her demanding career. Anything but the agonizingly obvious conclusion. After I disconnected the call, I remained seated, staring blankly ahead, my mouth dry, my heart thudding in slow, heavy beats. I recalled the times she claimed to have late client meetings, the evenings she arrived home with a luxury shopping bag from a boutique we'd never frequented together, the enigmatic do not disturb block on our shared digital calendar that she consistently brushed off as my sacred alone time. It all began to coalesce, connecting with an unsettling clarity. But the final, devastating thread materialized just an hour later, in the form of an encrypted direct message from a name I didn't immediately recognize. A woman who asserted she used to collaborate with Solana and possessed undeniable screenshots proving Solana had been orchestrating far more than just a wedding. The message originated from someone named Vivian Lane. I didn't recognize the name and initially assumed it was spam until I read the chilling preview. I know this might seem out of the blue, but I worked alongside Solana, and I genuinely believe you deserve to see this. My stomach flipped violently. My hands hovered over the screen for several agonizing seconds before I finally tapped it open. The first image that assaulted my senses was a screenshot of a group chat, prominently labeled Marketing Queens. Familiar names, some of Solana's known coworkers. The initial messages appeared harmless enough. Jokes about the shared office pantry snacks, a minor complaint about someone named Daphne microwaving pungent seafood yet again. And then I saw it, a candid photograph of me. I vividly remember that day. It was taken from behind as I stood patiently in line at an organic farmer's market, cradling a basket overflowing with locally sourced lemons, because she had insisted that store-bought ones possessed an artificial taste. The caption read, "Sterling in his natural habitat." Beneath it, another message, "Lemon Boy," followed by, "I swear, if I have to endure one more discussion about his air fryer, I might genuinely elope with Marcus instead." Marcus. The name struck me like a freezing slap to the face. Marcus was the prominent client she had ostensibly met 3 times over expensive wine and gourmet tapas. The one she adamantly maintained was merely a professional contact, perhaps a touch flirtatious, but ultimately harmless. I had even offered to drive her to one of their supposed meetings once. She had firmly declined, stating she would feel awkward with me present. Of course, she would have. I scrolled further, my vision blurring. The most agonizing part wasn't the thinly veiled sarcasm or the cruel jokes at my expense. It was the meticulous planning, the detached, transactional manner in which she discussed our impending wedding, framing it as a mere strategic objective. One message callously read, "Penthouse approval is significantly smoother if we're legally married." LOL, just have to make it to October, and I'm all set. Another, even more horrifying, stated, "I could easily subsist on his insurance for a full year if necessary." Not saying I would, but still. My eyes burned. I don't even recall placing the tablet down. I only know I propelled myself upright and stumbled into the kitchen, desperately needing to grasp something solid. I needed to feel the cool, unyielding edge of the granite counter, the familiar chill of the refrigerator handle, simply to remind myself that something in my life hadn't irrevocably changed, hadn't utterly betrayed me. Vivian messaged again, almost as if she possessed an uncanny awareness that I was still digesting the gut-wrenching information. I truly didn't want to get involved, Kaylin, but after her behavior at that party, whispers travel fast. A few of us felt genuinely sick observing the entire spectacle. "You simply didn't deserve any of this. None of it." I was speechless. I didn't even know this woman. She had no discernible motive to fabricate lies, no vested interest in aiding me. And yet here she was, delivering the kind of seismic truth bombs that leave you blinking numbly at a blank wall, desperately wondering what the entirety of your past year had actually meant. For the next agonizing hour, I indulged in an emotion I had never permitted myself to fully experience before. Anger. Not the soft, simmering resentment I typically buried beneath self-deprecating humor or uncomfortable laughter. No, this was fundamentally different. It was raw, it was real. And as the fragmented pieces relentlessly slotted into place, the messages, the callous tone of her laughter at the party, the hidden calendar blocks, the cruel jokes, the calculated deceptions, something deep inside me hardened irreversibly. I had canceled the wedding, yes, but now I realized I had done so without possessing the full, terrifying scope of the story. And if what I had seen was merely the opening act, then what came next would be a brutal, overdue reckoning. I couldn't sleep again that night. My body was utterly spent, yet my mind refused to cease its frantic replay of scenes, like a damaged recording stuck on a relentless loop. Her dismissive voice echoing through the opulent rooftop, the damning screenshots, that grotesque, emoji-laden group chat. The way people had looked at me, some with a fleeting pity, others with unconcealed amusement, as if I were merely the punchline to a cruel joke I hadn't realized I was a part of. Around 5 a.m., when the vast urban sky was just beginning to shift into that peculiar purple-gray pre-dawn hue, I instinctively grabbed my keys and drove. No predetermined route, no specific destination. I simply craved movement. The suffocating silence had become utterly unbearable. I eventually found myself parked outside her sister's stylish apartment building. Mavis, out of everyone within Solana's orbit, was the sole individual who had ever treated me as an actual human being. She had once, months ago, remarked that I deserved someone who recognized more in you than just your usefulness. I hadn't known how to process that comment back then. Now it resonated like a stark warning I had foolishly disregarded. I didn't even send a preliminary text. I simply knocked, my heart thudding against my ribs. When she opened the door, dressed in a soft hoodie and comfortable pajama pants, her eyes widened perceptibly, as if she'd encountered a specter. "Kaylin," she whispered, her voice laced with concern. "Are you all right?" I couldn't formulate an adequate response, so I merely managed, "Can we talk?" She began brewing coffee without uttering another word, and I sat at her petite kitchen island, feeling profoundly displaced, as if I'd materialized from another planet. When I finally recounted everything, from the horrifying group chat to the unexpected messages from Vivian, to Arthur's unsettling sightings of Solana with another man, Mavis didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp dramatically or feign shock. She simply stared into her steaming mug as if it contained all the answers to the universe's most complex questions. When I concluded, a protracted silence stretched between us. Then, in a quiet, almost shame-filled voice, she confessed, "I had no idea about the specific messages, Kaylin, but I did know about Marcus. She told me it was just harmless flirting." Mavis continued, her gaze fixed on the countertop. "She said he made her feel truly seen, and that she would never ever act on it. I warned her. I explicitly told her she was playing a dangerous game. She just laughed, said she had everything completely under control. I should have pushed harder. I am so sorry, Kaylin." I remained frozen, gripping the cold edge of the kitchen island. My fingers had gone completely numb. Then she added something for which I was entirely unprepared. "Kaylin, she never thought you'd actually leave." I slowly looked at her, my brow furrowed. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Mavis met my gaze, her eyes earnest. "She said it constantly, that you were too fundamentally safe to ever walk away, that you would always attempt to mend things, that she could do virtually anything, and you would still be there at the end of it, perhaps with an apology or a peace offering." I let out a harsh laugh, not because anything was remotely amusing, but because it was the only sound that didn't feel like a sob clawing its way up my throat. "You weren't weak, Kaylin," Mavis stated, her voice gentle yet firm. "You were fiercely loyal. She simply twisted that profound quality into something else entirely. I nodded, but internally I was unraveling, piece by agonizing piece. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a searing humiliation. I had been her ultimate safety net, her convenient backup plan, the perpetually understanding partner who could be publicly ridiculed, subtly manipulated, and yet still implicitly counted on to remain. But now definitively, I wasn't staying. As I walked out of Mavis's apartment building, she stopped me at the threshold. "Kaylin, you absolutely have to see what she posted this morning." And when I opened my phone, my blood ran cold. Solana had gone public, meticulously twisting the entire narrative into something so breathtakingly delusional, it made my stomach churn. There it was, a full-blown social media post, already climbing toward 300 likes in less than an hour. A carefully filtered close-up photo of her sitting on a bench near the scenic lake where we used to take our quiet walks. Her head tilted just enough to appear fragile, vulnerable. The accompanying caption, meticulously crafted, read, "Sometimes people simply walk away without a single warning. No closure, no explanation, just an agonizing silence. And you're left to wonder what you possibly did wrong." I blinked once, then again. My throat tightened painfully as I scrolled through the flood of comments. Her friends, the very same ones who had guffawed at her cruel jokes during the party, were inundating the post with heart emojis, declarations of "you deserve so much better," and condemnations like "men are so emotionally immature." One particularly venomous comment even stated, "I always knew he wasn't man enough for you." Another chimed in, "You'll find someone who truly appreciates your heart, Solana." I sat there, utterly stunned. This wasn't merely passive-aggressive. This was a calculated smear campaign, weaponized for maximum sympathy. She knew precisely what she was doing, skillfully playing the victim before I even had a remote chance to speak. But what struck me hardest wasn't the deluge of comments. It was the sheer number of mutual acquaintances who had blindly liked the post without a single question. No one bothered to text me. No one inquired about what had genuinely transpired. No one even wondered why I had canceled the wedding and seemingly vanished. They simply clicked like and moved on, as if she had penned a poignant eulogy rather than a brazen rewrite of the truth. I felt a fiery ache in my chest, not just from the profound betrayal, but from the chilling realization of how effortlessly people believed her narrative. How swiftly the quiet guy with the slightly nervous laugh and the overly soft heart had been transformed into the villain. I paced my apartment relentlessly, my heart hammering against my ribs, my teeth clenched tight. For a fleeting second, I actually entertained the thought of simply letting her monopolize the narrative. Keep it clean, walk away silently, preserve whatever sliver of dignity I had left. But then I recalled the devastating screenshots, the cruel texts, the cynical bet with her coworkers, the sickening way she had laughed while mocking me in front of complete strangers. I remembered Mavis's face, how genuinely ashamed she had looked for her sister. And I remembered Vivian, a woman I had never even met, who went to extraordinary lengths to send me the unvarnished truth. These women owed me absolutely nothing, yet they saw what I had stubbornly refused to acknowledge, that my silence would ultimately allow her to win. So I made a decisive choice. I didn't go nuclear. I didn't expose every single detail in one explosive, cathartic post. That would only make me appear vindictive, desperate. No, I initiated a smaller, more strategic move. A single story post, a stark black background with crisp white text. Simple. Since so many are asking for closure, here's a fragment. I called off the wedding because it turns out I wasn't the only person she was emotionally committed to. I left it at that. No names, no incriminating photos, no immediate receipts, but just enough to subtly shift the burgeoning conversation. Enough to compel people to pause, to question. Within minutes, my first message arrived, then a second, then 5 more in rapid succession. Some were from mutual acquaintances, others from people I barely knew, all of them asking with varying degrees of urgency, "Wait, what actually happened?" And then came the message I hadn't dared to anticipate, A direct message from Marcus Beckett himself. No words, just a precise phone number and the terse, undeniable message. We need to talk. It took me 3 agonizing hours to muster the nerve to call Marcus. His message sat in my inbox like a live wire, pulsing with unspoken truths. The man who was supposed to be merely a prominent client, who had appeared in secret messages, rooftop sightings, and casual group chat jokes, now wanted to speak directly to me. My palms were slick with sweat before I even tapped the glowing number. I had no idea what kind of conversation I was walking into. Was this intended as a taunt, a genuine apology, a full confession, or something far, far worse? Ready to learn the shocking truth that shattered 2 lives? When he answered, he didn't offer a polite greeting. He simply stated, his voice devoid of emotion, "I didn't know she was engaged." Those words dropped like a cinder block into the pit of my stomach. Marcus's voice was calm, yet undeniably tense, like someone carefully navigating a precarious tightrope between profound guilt and simmering anger. He explained that they had initially met at a prestigious industry networking event 6 months prior. She had introduced herself as single, confiding that she had recently emerged from a serious relationship but wasn't actively seeking anything complicated. He had believed her implicitly. Why wouldn't he? There was no ring visible, no mention of me, just carefully curated stories about her journey of rediscovering herself. He confessed they'd met up 6 or 7 times, casual coffee meetings at first, then escalating to evening drinks, and subsequently, things had progressed further. He didn't elaborate on the specifics, and I didn't press him. I didn't need to. The agonizing image was already searingly sharp in my mind. What struck me wasn't solely the betrayal, it was the chilling precision with which she had orchestrated her deception. How effortlessly she maintained 2 entirely separate lives. How she meticulously planned a wedding with me, while simultaneously feeding another man a completely divergent narrative. Then he uttered something that made my skin crawl with revulsion. She actually invited me to the engagement party. I nearly dropped the phone, my hand trembling violently. She framed it as merely a friend's thing and suggested I come later in the evening, implying I'd meet some of her crew. She had made it sound so utterly casual, so innocuous, but now the horrifying realization dawned on me. She had wanted him there, perhaps as a bizarre form of backup, or perhaps simply for the perverse thrill of it all. I couldn't speak. I felt physically ill. He paused, his voice softening slightly. "When your story post went live, I saw it. Someone I follow reshared it. I immediately put 2 and 2 together. Kaylin, man, I am truly sorry. I had absolutely no idea about any of this." We disconnected the call shortly thereafter. I mumbled a "thank you, don't ask me why." And once again I sat there in the silence. But this time the silence was profoundly different. This wasn't the crushing weight of heartbreak anymore. This wasn't the disorienting fog of confusion. It was absolute crystalline clarity. I finally saw her for who she truly was, not the idealized version I had desperately tried to believe she could be. And more importantly, I finally saw me. The version of me who had quietly tolerated being relegated to second place. The man who naively believed that unwavering loyalty would somehow, eventually, earn reciprocal love. That version of me was irrevocably gone. Within the hour, I began meticulously packaging everything. The damning screenshots, the cruel texts, the corroborating messages from Vivian and Marcus, consolidating them all into one secure digital folder. I wasn't going to indiscriminately post it online. That wasn't my strategy, but I needed it ready because she was still out there, actively disseminating her fabricated version of events. And I wasn't going to allow her to bury the undeniable truth beneath a mountain of carefully curated hashtags and manufactured tears. But before I could even fully decide what to do with the meticulously compiled folder, something utterly unexpected occurred. A message materialized from Solana herself. 4 simple words. "We need to talk." She requested to meet in person. I agreed, but stipulated a public place, neutral territory, devoid of any potential for dramatic outbursts, no furniture to be thrown, no doors to be slammed in the theatrical exits. We met at a quiet, glass-walled eatery in a bustling downtown plaza on a Tuesday afternoon. Far removed from the meticulously curated chaos of her social media feed, she arrived wearing soft, understated makeup and the exact same mournful expression she had so effectively utilized online. That familiar, how could you look, cleverly designed to cast her as the victim of her own intricate mess. I didn't speak first. I waited, my gaze steady. She settled into the modern chair slowly, then leaned forward, her voice a low whisper. I honestly didn't think you'd actually leave, Kaylin. I simply blinked. That was it. That was her carefully chosen opener. For the next 10 minutes, she delivered what I can only describe as a meticulously rehearsed, carefully calibrated half-apology. She expressed sorrow that I had been hurt, sorrow that I had discovered her deceptions in such an undignified manner, sorrow that I had endured public embarrassment. Crucially, she wasn't sorry for what she had done, only sorry that it had all become so inconveniently messy. She danced around the stark truth like it was a raging bonfire, desperately trying to avoid getting burned by its flames. But then she made a fatal error. She asked, her voice laced with a subtle plea, "Can we just keep this quiet? Just tell everyone it simply didn't work out?" And that's when something profound clicked inside me. Not a surge of rage, not a pang of renewed sadness, just a profound, unwavering sense of finality. I met her gaze directly, my voice clear and firm. No, you publicly mocked me. You privately betrayed me, and now you want to quietly salvage your reputation. That chapter, Solana, is irrevocably closed. I am done playing the silent, expendable character in your story. She stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment. Her lips parted slightly, as if she were desperately searching for her next move, but there wasn't one to be found. I stood up, placed enough cash on the sleek table to cover her artisanal coffee, and walked out. The afternoon sun hit my face with a warmth I hadn't felt in weeks, perhaps even months. And for the very first time in what felt like an eternity, I didn't feel humiliated. I felt profoundly, utterly free. The wedding is off. The ring has been discreetly sold. I used a portion of that money to book a spontaneous solo trip. Not to escape, but to consciously begin something entirely new. I've been actively reconnecting with cherished friends I had inadvertently lost touch with. I'm relearning how to genuinely enjoy silence without the suffocating weight of guilt or anxiety, and I've even started journaling again, not out of lingering pain, but out of a newfound sense of profound peace. Solana can post whatever she wishes. She can spin whatever version of events she needs to believe to reconcile her own conscience. But I now know my truth, and more importantly, I have finally chosen me. Thank you for journeying with me through this entire narrative. I sincerely hope it reminded someone out there that walking away is never a sign of weakness. Sometimes, in fact, it is the crucial first step toward reclaiming who you truly are. 95% of people miss this simple truth about healing. What's one pivotal moment in your life that taught you the invaluable lesson of valuing your own worth? Share your thoughts below.